Yes, it does, but it also doesn't. Let me explain. Persona is widely regarded as one of the easiest JRPGs when it comes to the gameplay, and this is for pretty obvious reasons. Even on the hardest difficulties, the games are extremely easy, and games like Persona 3 Reload and Persona 5 Royal have really brought this topic into the spotlight more over the years. So, is this necessarily a bad thing? Obviously, this is a subjective question, but today I want to give my perspective on this topic and try to see it from both sides. I'm gonna just go ahead and get started by saying Persona has always been easy. There is absolutely no game in this entire franchise that is actually difficult to complete from start to finish. Even the answer from Persona 3 Fest is easy. It's just annoying as fuck because that shit is boring as hell. And I mention this because I think people overrate the difficulty of it. And I'll elaborate on that in a bit since it's relevant to the conversation. But even going to Persona 1 and 2, at least the PSP remakes, those are easy too. Persona 2 Innocent Sin on PSP is by far one of the easiest games I have ever played. I have yet to change from the default personas and the enemies still do 1 to 2 damage on average. Not even an exaggeration, straight up 1 damage. I just turn on auto battle and let the game play itself. So obviously this is on the extreme side of it being too easy. But the thing is, I don't think the game being easy is the actual problem. Honestly, I don't think something like Persona 5 Royal is really much harder than Persona 2, but I love that game's combat, so what gives? How does that make any sense? From my perspective, it doesn't matter how easy or hard a game is, but rather how fun the mechanics and gameplay loop itself are. Persona 3 Reload has some of my favorite gameplay in the series as far as mainline goes, because of the abundance of options you were given, and the theurgy system adds to that. The second you get access to the theurgy mechanic, the game is over. You just win. Pierce resistances, severe damage or support, and you can use it I don't even know how many times a fight as long as you take advantage of the characteristics. On the other side of the coin, and I know this isn't Persona but just bear with me, Shin Megami Tensei 5 Vengeance is the exact same thing but with a game that can actually be challenging. Despite however many times I may die during any given section or encounter, the game is fun because you are given limitless opportunities to play the game however you want. If SMT5 had the exact same difficulty level, but was more limited, then I would call it a bad game when it comes to the gameplay. I feel like this kind of argument is more obvious when you talk about difficult games because it actually matters more in that aspect, but the same argument applies when games are easy too. If a game is easy but has a terrible gameplay loop, then that's just extremely boring. If a game is very easy but has a good gameplay loop, examples again being like Royal and Reload, does that mean the game is good or bad? This is a lot harder to say, but the answer for me would be yes. But there's also good arguments for the answer to be no, and these things are valid, so I want to talk about that perspective as well. I actually had a pretty good discussion about this in the Persona 4 Arena Ultimax Discord server with someone in chat, and is what made me want to make this video. Shout out Wizzy who I talked to, but to sum up the conversation we had, he said the level of ease is the reason he didn't like Royals or P4's gameplay much, and said P3 Fest's gameplay was solid, so his perspective was the direct opposite of mine basically. Things like baton pass, show times, technicals, and other mechanics on top of the already easy game itself made it unenjoyable. I want to be fair, so I do want to give some critiques that come with the fact of how easy the games are overall. The reason I like these games despite how easy they are is how broken you can make yourself, right? So your personas can be unkillable, you can make use of theurgy, show times, whatever it may be. But there is a big issue that stems from this. Even if I do enjoy doing these broken things that make the game easy, the fact that the game is as easy as it is makes it impossible to really even take advantage of it. If I want to set up a turn where I do 8 billion damage with Akihiko for example, there's a good chance I'm going to straight up kill the enemy before I can even get it set up at all. It hits a level of so easy and broken that the broken shit isn't even possible to do because you just win so fast. For the entirety of Reload, I was finishing fights before the best part of it's going down now could even start, and I think that's a massive issue. But you want to know what else is a massive issue? You not hitting that like and sub button, I know you wanna. Alright, shameless plug aside, all the time investment you put into doing this cool broken shit is just pointless because it doesn't matter. Even the super bosses bar maybe Elizabeth and Theodore in Persona 3 are no challenge either, and even then I beat them without too much issue as well. Persona 4 and 5 super bosses are just a joke honestly, since you can make a Yoshitsune that nullifies everything and is also the best damage dealer in the game. Basically, you have no real chance or opportunity to do what you want to do, and that's a problem. I remember when I was playing Reload and got to the final boss, I beat every phase of it in like one attack, and honestly it doesn't feel too good to win that way. In any game you play, to feel truly satisfied in the gameplay department, there has to be a sizable challenge for you to overcome, and Persona does not fulfill that whatsoever. If the games were a bit harder, or if the fights lasted a bit longer, then I think that alone would fix most of the issues that people have. So from that perspective, the answer to the overarching question would be no. Games like Royal and Reload are not good gameplay-wise. It's not the mere existence of these mechanics or combat systems that is the issue, and games like SMT5 prove that. Beyond even just the gameplay and combat itself though, there's something else that's important regarding this topic, and that is the dungeons in pure game design. The dungeons you explore are the means to the end when it comes to the gameplay, and story too, but that's besides the point right now. So how these dungeons are balanced plays a role in how rewarding and fun the combat is as well. To demonstrate what I'm talking about, take Reload for instance, since that's what we're using as an example in a lot of the cases, where in that game there are a bunch of breakable objects that drop basically unlimited healing and support items. I think this is something that breaks the game really hard. Since you just get infinite heals and shit, you don't even really need a healer. I personally don't use items when I play, but if you do, then someone like Yukari's role is completely null and void. And beyond even the dungeons doing this, the fact you can grind money so easily and buy basically unlimited items from the shop, it just breaks the game. There's just no real scenarios where you're at risk of this, and it makes SP pointless. The last main thing I'll mention for the negatives is that magic in Persona sucks ass. It's impossible for magic to be better than Fizz just because magic can't crit and Fizz always does more damage, and it doesn't take SP. You can refill your HP much easier than you can your SP, so I really feel like they gotta find a way to make magic better going forward. Reload isn't the only game that does this, but it's one of the most egregious examples of it. Another just mind-bogglingly broken— wait, what the fuck did I just say? Boggling? Sounds like a chant SpongeBob and Patrick would do, what the fuck? Whatever. Then you get the rare examples of games that just suck at absolutely everything, like the answer from Fest that I mentioned earlier, so let's go over that. The answer is probably the hardest that any modern Persona game has ever gotten, and like I said, it's not that hard, but I think it's such a good demonstration of how not to do difficulty and balance. The dungeons are bad, the gameplay loop is mid, so at that point, what else is there really to even say? I don't know how much of a hot take this is, but I think not being able to control your party members in a JRPG is just stupid. I'm not saying it's objectively bad, please don't take it that way, but even with the tactics option, it's just so boring to go through and straight up infuriating at times. Sometimes you'll want them to do a certain thing, and no matter what, they just don't. The absolute worst thing the answer did though was not giving you a compendium. Not only does it make it borderline impossible to make fun in broken builds, but it just makes the gameplay loop for casual play absolutely fucking garbage. If you get to a boss and you feel like you need a new persona, well, tough shit, motherfucker, because you're gonna have to hope you confuse it with whatever the fuck personas you have in stock, or go find it through shuffle time. Then you're going through the same monotonous dungeons that blend in with each other over and over again with outright annoying and infuriating boss designs that just make you wonder why you even bothered in the first place. You might be compelled to say skill issue, but remember, I don't care how hard something is as long as it's fun, and the way they design the answer makes it inherently not fun. With that said, the Reload version of the answer has the potential to be the best balance of difficulty and gameplay if they fix some of these issues. The dungeon design can be improved for sure, we saw clear improvements with Tartarus in the journey. Reload has fun combat mechanics, so if they can find a way to balance the difficulty out and make it a little bit better in that regard, then it'll be one of the best overall for sure. I want to reiterate again that even if the Reload version ends up being super easy, as long as they find a way to make it an engaging experience, then it's fine in my opinion. Hard, easy, it's not a big point of concern for me, but I like to see things from different perspectives, so let me say this for those who think it's too easy. Persona 5 was the first really big and long JRPG that I finished, and at the time I didn't really like turn-based combat at all, but the Persona series was easy enough for me to find an appreciation for it. Persona is basically the entry-level JRPG for people to get into at this point, and it's a lot more welcoming and forgiving than something like SMT5 as I've been comparing the games to. For people well experienced in the genre, yeah, it's way too easy, but for newcomers, I mean, it's kind of perfect. I honestly think that was part of the reason Persona 5 was such a big success. It gave you broken shit, made it optional, but also made it so you did need to make use of the mechanics like persona fusing to get it done. We get so laser focused on how easy it is for experienced players and forget about people who just aren't that good at the games. I've seen people play even Persona 4, which is easy, and struggle with it since they're just not used to this kind of game. That's another big reason why I don't think it's a major cause of concern, because no matter how easy it is, at the end of the day, what makes Persona so compelling for most players is the story and characters. I really doubt the developers are sitting down like, okay, how can we make this game more balanced? We're giving the player too many options. They're probably more like, okay, how can we make it feel like the players are God incarnate? We need to give them theurgy, showtimes, broken personas, you literally can't be killed, this, that, the other. And that approach does well for most people, and I know that because I've seen it from word of mouth and reviews. If you don't like the thought of making yourself unkillable, then maybe try some of the difficulty mods the community has made for the games if you have PC. They rebalance the games to make them harder and more unforgiving, so it might be exactly what you're looking for. I think it's a good compromise. Something I want to mention before we wrap this video up though, is that no joke, Persona 5 The Phantom X is a really good game when it comes to the gameplay. Yes, it's a Chinese gacha game, I know, but the way the combat works is just good, honestly. Each character has their own gimmick and purpose. Some might be AoE DPS, single target DPS, DOT DPS, and some might be shield support, heal support, and then you've got navigators that are good for several things like buffs, debuffs, stuff like that. There are so many options you can choose to go with. You can build your characters to your liking, build your team in I don't even know how many different ways, build your own protagonist in different ways, and so many fights have different gimmicks and strats for them that you basically have to use different teams. I honestly think that when this game comes to global at some point, people are gonna love it. I've been playing it since launch and I've seriously been impressed at how they've made each new character feel distinct from one another, and everyone has a purpose. Not only that, the difficulty is pretty well balanced too. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's bullshit sometimes, but even with max level, max built characters, I can still have a challenging fight here and there through the events and whatnot they hold. I didn't expect much from it, but it really did blow my mind in the gameplay department, and the skills are undoubtedly the best looking in the series. I mean, look at Joker's attack here, there's nothing in Royal or Reload touching that at all. I'd almost go as far to say that when it comes to the turn-based gameplay of Persona, P5X seriously could be my favorite. And to top it off, the story and characters are very good. They rival even the main Phantom Thieves in some ways, but this is about the gameplay, not the story. For Persona 6 and the other games going forward, they should take note of what P5X did with characters and giving them distinct feels, because it feels so nice to play, and it would be even better with it not being in a gacha game. To summarize our discussion here today, yes, difficulty does matter, but it also doesn't, so honestly, we didn't learn much. It mostly just comes down to who you are and what you value in a gameplay loop. So with that said, I'd love to hear what you think, you beautiful viewer watching this video. Do you think Persona is too easy? Too hard? Boring? Fun? Let me know what you think in the comments. And don't forget to like and sub, I would appreciate it. And I'll even give you a cookie before you go. Here you go, homie. With that said, I've said all I want to say. It's been your boy Yandere Gogeta, and I will see you in the next video. Peace out everybody, and have a great day.